Hello, my name is Sebastian Canseco. If there is anything that I like about a lot of things, it is that I like a lot of things. It is officially the end of another year. 2021, huh? The year that came after the shitstorm that was 2020. Personally, this year was only a little bit better than 2020, but still it was extremely underwhelming and overwhelming at the same time. But within every year, there are good and bad things that happen, and the most that we can really do is keep pushing on and keep moving forward. But yes, at least we have the shows and media that got us through this year, and also streaming and exclusive theatrical films that could either be a hit or a miss. This is most likely my longest video thus far, because I have a lot of shit to say. Again, I'm a huge nerd for this kind of shit, and now I'm about to go through what I thought was the best and mediocre of 2021. Since I'm a film buff, let's start with films. Ooh, goody. My top 10 films of 2021. Shang-Chi is a fire solo movie from Marvel Studios, and probably the best one since Thor Ragnarok, or Spider-Man Homecoming. Well, so the so-called movie buff puts a comic book film in his top 10 films. How about films like The Harder They Fall, The Power of the Dog, Coda, or Spencer? Don't play me for a fool, those films were great too. But remember, these are the best films of the year. Just because one film is ranked above another film, it doesn't make the film below any less significant. Even the films in my top 30 are amazing. And I even had to make some pretty major cuts for this list. But these 10 specifically are the films that hit me personally this whole year. And if you don't like it, then there's the freaking no! I don't think anybody got that reference. Anyways, let's not take this seriously, and let's just have fun. Shang-Chi has the most solid action sequences Marvel has done so far. The martial arts fighting gives a fresh, bold energy to the franchise. Simu Liu is perfect as Shang-Chi himself, giving a lot of charm and personality. Awkwafina was a welcome addition too. She should seriously be an Avenger though. She'd be like the funniest one. But the one actor that steals the absolute show for me is Death Dealer. Just kidding, he was only in the film for about 2 whole minutes, until he went out like a bitch. But he looked so cool! I want to see more of him, bro. The actor I was talking about, by the way, was Tony Leung. He was such an amazing villain, something that doesn't even usually happen often in the MCU. I love how they followed up the disappointing retcon from Iron Man 3, and even put the disappointing retcon himself in the film. In the future, I plan to review about every Marvel film all the way to Thor Love and Thunder, so I'll give more information on the future about this. But overall, Shang-Chi is a damn fine martial arts adventure. Judas and the Black Messiah is a compelling, complex study on Fred Hampton, told from the viewpoint of the man that would later betray Fred, William O'Neill. Lakeith Steinfeld and Daniel Kaluuya were outstanding, and Shaka King's direction gives the story so much more complexity than you would expect. One of my favorite choices in the film was in the beginning and near the end, where a jazz cue plays to highlight William's character and a choice that he made. It was spine-chilling. This film has more going for it than just being a historical biopic. It doesn't shy away from the harsh reality of it all. You'll smile, you'll cry, you'll come out of this experiencing a powerful masterclass. Our love is alive, and so we begin. Licorice Pizza, in which I learned that it's slang for vinyl. Get it? Vinyl is the color of licorice and it's shaped like a pizza. Licorice Pizza revolves on the relationship around Gary Valentine and Alana Kay, experiencing events and mishaps between both of them in the summer of 1973. I see a relationship in kind of like the interpersonal communication of both characters. Gary loves Alana, a woman in her 20s, as Gary himself is an actor in high school. With the controversial age gap this film has between its 2 lead characters, most of the film doesn't really focus on the romantic aspects, as it really just goes to the more interpersonal aspects between its 2 leads. For the most part, it tries not to make the gap feel uncomfortable. The chemistry is charming, but in real life, if I see any relationship with this gap, you are going to catch these hands. Licorice Pizza doesn't really have a complex plot, it's really just a series of events that happen between its 2 leads, but it's a riveting series of events. I feel somehow nostalgic for a time that I didn't even live through. This film manages to strike a chord with its outstanding cast, catchy soundtrack, and just a chill and bold vibe that the film is embedded with. It's pretty different compared to Paul Thomas Anderson's other films, but experiencing this in a theater made this film an experience that I will kind of cherish. depending on the subtlety and silence of the situations. The sequel gives more context to information set up in the first one, and it leads to, honestly, an ending that was absolutely satisfying. The actors do an amazing job here, especially Millicent Simmons and Noah Chube. Emily Blunt gives her absolute all here, and should honestly be nominated for an Oscar. I know that's right! Oh no. Oh crap, run! Whew. I think I lost him now. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, the epic of the decade so far. I guess it's not a surprise that the 27 Justice League, which was directed by Joss Whedon, because Zack Snyder left due to a family tragedy, would not be good. I'm not a Zack Snyder stan by any means, as I think his films are too dark and overwhelming for me, but they're very passable, they're watchable at least. But I think the fact that this film, brought to life by the fans that were clamoring the real Justice League to be released, after the mediocrity of the Joss Whedon one, unedited and shown in its full glory in 4 solid hours, made this film actually pretty amazing. Zack Snyder's Justice League is Zack Snyder's magnum opus. Everything in this film is enthralling. The characters, the action, the score, the cinematography, the dramatic tension beyond the whole thing. This is literally DC's Infinity War. Even though there are good films in the DCEU, the fact that I felt so much out of this is an achievement on its own. It shows that if you let a director just go off and craft the best vision of a project, there's a massive payoff to it, like James Gunn in The Suicide Squad, which I will get to soon. I actually cared for Justice League this time, and one Justice League character, Flash, has maybe one of the greatest scenes in DC history. It would be amazing if the actor who played the Flash did nothing problematic or anything like that at all, you know? Overall, Zack Snyder's Justice League never bored me for the 4 hours. The 4-hour runtime might be daunting, but I recommend this to anyone that has ever liked DC. For the Snyderverse in general, I would like to see it continue, but for what it's worth, I'm fine if it doesn't either. The DCEU is becoming a lot better with their recent films, and I feel like the upcoming Flash film might kind of retcon this whole world with the bringing of Michael Keaton's Batman, but maybe it might not, who knows? Zack Snyder is doing other things now with Netflix, so if that makes him happy, then it's fine by me. Zack Snyder's Justice League is Zack Snyder's greatest creation. I think a good amount of people have probably seen this film at this point, and could bask in its amazingness, but I will say this. Spider-Man No Way Home gave me everything that I wanted out of it. It's a compelling film, and even in its fan-service-y elements, the movie smartly uses the fan service to deepen the story of Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Out of the entire Homecoming trilogy to this far, this movie wasn't afraid to get intense. It showed Peter Parker having to make harsh choices and make sacrifices, which leads to the best drama I've seen thus far for a Spider-Man movie. I love the return of villains from the other Spider-Man films in this film. I care for literally every single one, even Lizard. If you make me care about characters from The Amazing Spider-Man, then that's how you know you did a good job. Okay, there are some things I want to say next, but it's going to be spoiler territory. Skip to this time here if you don't want to get spoiled. Ooh, just giving you a couple seconds to bask out now. Oh my god! When Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire showed up, I literally cried. It was amazing. Daredevil's appearance was shocking. Aunt May's death was shocking. The last 40 minutes of this film, the theater became a sports arena. All 3 Spider-Men in the same film! William Dafoe is a force not to be reckoned with. And Tobey seeing Doc Ock again was awesome. Having Tobey say, "You're amazing" to Andrew Garfield, I was crying a tsunami. Andrew catching MJ after failing to catch Gwen in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, that was thrilling, and it actually makes The Amazing Spider-Man 2 important to Andrew's character. When Tom Holland was on the verge of killing Green Goblin, Tobey Maguire actually stops him from killing Green Goblin. Oh, I love this goddamn film! Oh, this is how you use fan service to benefit not only a film, but an entire franchise as a whole. All in all, No Way Home is an unforgettable conclusion to the Homecoming story arc, and it will be the film that generations will never forget. It all comes to show, with great power comes great responsibility. Even though it's really a comic book film, The Suicide Squad breathes new life to the genre as the absolute zaniest, craziest, and hilariously sadistic comic book film I've ever seen, and I loved every single minute of it. James Gunn is the master, man. There was a Suicide Squad film back in 2016, but due to that film having negative reactions, it led to a different director taking the mantle. And honestly, thank God. I didn't dislike Suicide Squad 2016 as much as some fans did. I thought it was a fun summer film. But the Suicide Squad is much bolder and boosts so much more emotion and irreverent humor to make it stand apart on its own. This Suicide Squad being rated R was a huge benefit to it. I honestly wish more comic book films branched out like this. Idris Elba was amazing. Like, this dude should seriously be in more big budget films. John Cena perfectly plays into his whole world so well. I think someday he might be as versatile as Dwayne Johnson. Almost, I said, John. You're getting there. Like, shit, Peacemaker came out early in 2021, and it was awesome. Stay tuned for this year's best list for me to talk about that. My favorite characters especially were Ratcatcher 2 and Polka Dot Man, as I thought they were really strong characters. Like, actually, I even gave a shit about Rick Flag in this film. King Shark and Harley Quinn were great too. Honestly, this film on paper should not work as well as it does. But overall, the fact that this film was amazing as it was opens so many doors for DC and even Warner Brothers. If Warner Brothers knew how to run DC, that is. Alright, so now, the next film on my list is Dominic Toretto approved. The Mitchells vs. the Machines is a spectacular, emotional, and hilarious film that follows a family trying to stop a robot apocalypse. The film flourishes with character and commentary regarding technology and the evolution of it, all put together in astonishingly beautiful animation. What makes this film shine is not only the theme of technology, but the theme of family. Everybody in the cast gives their all, and the film is so amazingly paced, throwing so much at you but in the best way possible. This film is from the same crew that made the Lego Movie and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So obviously this film was going to be amazing! The Mitchells vs. the Machines is exclusively on Netflix, and I could not recommend it enough. Alright, I have to admit this, Steven Spielberg is a filmmaker. This remake of West Side Story is darker, more intense, and more embedded in character, which makes this musical remake one of a kind. That's funny because there are many kinds of West Side Story that exist. This film is glossed in stunning cinematography, choreography, and overall performance. The darker tone and the raw feel of it makes this film. I honestly like this West Side Story over the 60s West Side Story, and that is a big achievement on its own. If you haven't seen it, which I bet a lot of you haven't, it's on Disney+. Check it out. And also, Ariana DeBose deserved that Oscar. That's all I'm going to say. Well, it has come to this. My favorite film of the year. I'll give y'all a little hint. My favorite film of 2021 rhymes with tune. Doon, 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 doon. Warner Brothers did good with the remake of Dune. Dune is a grand, epic, stunning film that boasts some of the best filmography that Denis Villeneuve has done his whole career. With this and Blade Runner, Villeneuve is giving great sequels to 80s sci-fi sleeper hits. Dune the book is extremely complex and almost unadaptable. Like, there's no way that this film would nearly be as mesmerizing and well done as it is. Timothée Chalamet, as popular as he is really good in this film. And all the big name celebrities do the job as well. Since Dune is a huge book in which I've read it in... Yeah, it's a pretty large book with a lot to take in. This film is technically part 1 of a 2 or 3 part story. Even though it is a part 1, it is an amazing part 1. Since it is my number 1, I can't wait to be blown away by number 2. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend. Dune, my favorite film of the year. With those 10 films that I've showcased, there are many other films that I liked a lot and that I would like to showcase too. Here are my honorable mentions. For all that Eternals is, being the worst reviewed Marvel Studios film, honestly, I think I've grown to really like this film. 75% of the film is really good. I do appreciate Marvel for trying something different with their formula. The concept of Eternals is very interesting, and the characters have a lot of depth to them. My favorite characters being Droog, Makari, and Thena. Not to mention that it has lore that I would like to see explored more. But that really decides on if people actually do want to see more of the Eternals. Well, I do. On paper, this film is a great idea, but I think this film just suffers because there's so much to take in, and also it's kind of different and such. But honestly, I do like more ambition in blockbusters, especially Marvel films. So Eternals has a special place in my heart. I'll talk more about it sometime. Fear Street 1994 is a retro, R-rated Goosebumps, and I could not say that with higher praise. This film is a lot of fun. The characters are great and could make dumb choices at times. But let's be honest, if some murderer was charging around town, are you just gonna suddenly be an expert at taking murderers down? I didn't think so! This is the first film in the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix, in which the second one is set in 1978, and the third one being set in 1666. The trilogy is meant to be seen this way. 1994 is my favorite one, mostly because of its fast pace and clever writing, but I do like the sequels too. Overall, I love this film, and I hope to see more out of this universe. Last Night in Soho has an intriguing premise, and I was looking forward to this one, as it's from one of my favorite directors, Edgar Wright. Soho has an absolutely mesmerizing first half, but its second half drags a bit and becomes a little too heavy-handed, but maybe in the second watch it'll connect with me better. There's a lot to like, especially Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy. Soho has a Hitchcock-type thrill to the whole thing, and I love the 60s aesthetic. I immediately listened to the soundtrack after seeing this. Overall, Last Night in Soho isn't perfect, but it provides a good amount of thrill and mystery to make me satisfied. Malignant, on the other hand, is a reverse Last Night in Soho. The first hour of the film is pretty average, but the second half goes legit so hard and crazy that I couldn't get enough of it. Malignant really impressed me for reasons that I legit do not want to spoil. If you're a horror fan, see this film if you haven't yet.
Welcome to the family, Madrigal, the home of the
It's funny how I go from horror films to something as endearing as Encanto. Yeah, the film is extremely simple and has low stakes, but honestly that made the film stand out to me. Encanto is getting extremely popular after it dropped on Disney+, with even the soundtrack breaking countless records. The fact that we don't talk about Bruno literally hit #1 on the Billboard 100 is absolutely insane to me. Let It Go did not hit #1. Beauty and the Beast did not hit #1. The power this film holds! And also the fact that the music was written from Lin-Manuel Miranda. This dude chased a bag in 2021. Encanto is a fun, emotional, and dramatic film which the themes hit me the most. And it's been a while since a Disney film did that. And it was all from the family that's fantastical and magical. I can't believe I liked Luca as much as I did. I identified a lot with these characters and enjoyed the heartfelt adventure that took place. I felt the relationship between Luca and Alberto as they try to conceal their identities from people that might be scared of them or don't like their kind. But they try their best to have fun and thrive, even if it's for something like winning a Vespa. Doing it together as the best of fish friends. This is too much to take in. Go to the next film. Get me something more badass. Yeah, that's more like it. Godzilla v. Kong is an entertaining, thrilling spectacle. This movie was honestly everything that I've ever wanted out of its title. It's two freaking kaiju legends, King Kong and Godzilla, both in the same movie, fighting each other. What more can you ask for? The fights and action scenes were very entertaining, and the film is so vibrant and colorful. It was a treat seeing this in IMAX. This film gives everything that I wanted out of the MonsterVerse, and I usually don't care about the involvement of humans in these films, but I didn't mind them in this one. To be honest, this might be the best film in the entire MonsterVerse, and I want to see more films in the cinematic universe like it. Based on the insanely popular anime of the same name, the Demon Slayer film is the gap between Season 1 and Season 2. It makes me so happy that this film is breaking records across the world. This opens so many doors to theatrical animes being released all around the world. Like Jujutsu Kaisen 0, a Lord of the Rings anime film that's going to be released in 2024? Dude! Also, Demon Slayer, the movie, Mugen Train, is a tour de force. It's an emotional, dark, gripping film that honestly made me cry crazy. Honestly, who didn't cry in this film? Even though it is recommended that you have seen the show first before the movie, there's still a lot here to like for non-fans. Also for the fact that this might be the second anime film that I've ever seen in theaters. Do you want to know what the first one was, actually? Here's a fun fact. Back in 2009, I actually saw Ponyo in theaters. I kid you not. I mean, I don't even remember that much. I don't even remember the experience that much. But I do remember that I did see Ponyo in theaters back in 2009. I told you 2009 was a great year for films. All in all, if you haven't caught up on Demon Slayer, what the hell are you doing? Being the new film from Wes Anderson, The French Dispatch is an anthology that is inspired by the French magazine of the same name. 3 separate stories with bold direction, excellent cinematography, and an all-star cast. As much as I like Wes Anderson, there are some of his works that I don't really have a gigantic grasp on, and maybe I'd need to see this film again to catch on more of it, but don't get me wrong here, the presentation was still spectacular from a visual level, and I was rarely ever bored. The Many Saints of Newark, a Sopranos story, is a prequel set on Dicky Mussolini, who was caught in a major gang war between the 60s and 70s, while inspiring some of his actions onto young Tony Soprano, who would later be the protagonist of the highly acclaimed HBO show, The Sopranos. I'm describing the story like this, because that's what the film really is. Warner Brothers marketed this as the huge prequel to young Tony Soprano himself, when he is really only in the film for about 10 minutes at most. With that said, this film is a tad disappointing, not only within the misleading marketing, but it's also because it has a jumbled storyline that tries to fit too much within 2 hours. I honestly think this should have been a TV series. Actually, this would work a lot better as a TV series. This being a TV series would give more time to showcase the key elements and also put more Tony Soprano in there. Within the fact that the boy who plays young Tony Soprano, Michael Galdini, is the son of James Galdini, in which James plays grown Tony Soprano in The Sopranos. That is brilliant fucking casting right there. And Michael is really good. Even with its disappointing elements, there are things that I do like in this film. But honestly, this film really just needed to be better advertised. But if you call Michael Galdini's performance whack, he's going to give you another meaning of the word whack. In the Heights is a new musical that is an adaptation of the Broadway show of the same name. From the one and only playwright existing, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Give a round of applause for Lin-Manuel Miranda, once again. This dude was everywhere this year. In the Heights revolves around an eventful few days of summer in Washington Heights, as conflicts between many characters create and collide against each other. Especially the main character, Uznavi, who is not going to throw away his shot. Yeah, Uznavi, the main character. With a colorful soundtrack to boot and good performances from the cast, this musical is a sight to behold. The Matrix Resurrections is such a weird movie to talk about. It's a follow-up to The Matrix Revolutions, which is the finale to the Matrix trilogy, so really this is the follow-up to the Matrix trilogy. But at the same time, it's a self-aware, fourth-wall-breaking action film that calls back to the previous films, and I liked it a lot. I'm not huge on The Matrix as a whole, but I understand its standing as an iconic film. In terms of revivals, this is one of the more better ones I've seen, in which I think the fourth movie brings some unique things to the table. And I just like seeing Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss together again, especially in the resurrected states. This film is sometimes on the nose with its callbacks, but honestly, I thought it was very enjoyable. Now, with all that said, I'm going to do a speed round, in which I'm going to talk about the remaining highlighted films of mine in a short amount of time. Let's go! Speed round! The new Candyman wasn't bad, but I felt like it could have delved more into the subjects that it was describing and what it was saying. But in terms of recent quote-unquote requels, this is definitely one of the more interesting ones. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. The Conjuring 3 came out last summer, and I have to say, I love the Conjuring franchise. I also just love seeing the Warrens do macabre investigations. This isn't the greatest Conjuring film, but it was still a scary good time, and I wouldn't mind watching more of these films. Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar. Barb and Star is an insanely weird comedy, and it's one of those weird comedies that I would like to see more of often. The world kinda needs more crazy comedies like there used to be. This film especially would have been a goddamn riot in theaters. Everybody's talking about Jamie. Jamie was a play that I saw a recording of online, and I remember liking it a lot. This film not only builds upon the stage aspect, it portrays the story and characters profoundly. Great film. It sucks that some of these films were released digitally this year and not theatrically, which sucks for the films themselves. Speaking of which, the SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run came out in 2021. Did anyone know that? The first SpongeBob film was a goddamn masterpiece, while the follow-up, Sponge Out of Water, was a hell of a good time too. Sponge on the Run was definitely the weakest out of the SpongeBob films, but honestly, I don't care. It's just fun seeing these characters anytime, and it's nice to see that SpongeBob still has that blend of kooky and dark humor that fans love it for. The cameos were nice, the animation was nice, this movie is just nice. Cruella DeVille. Cruella is the live-action Disney film centered on the origins of Cruella DeVille, showcasing the vulnerable side of her before she would grow up and have a craving of skinning Dalmatians for her clothing brand. You know, a great role model! All of that aside, Cruella is definitely better than I thought it would be. Emma Stone and Emma Thompson are refreshingly fun and have great performances here. I love how dark and sadistic it is for a Disney film, as much as they can get away with the PG-13 rating anyway. And it also has a twist around Cruella's character that I didn't see coming, actually. It's funny that Cruella kind of retcons specific Dalmatians media and that it's in its own universe. Speaking of universe, what if classic Disney villains from specific Disney films team up together in one film and have their own film together? It could work however the idea is executed. Oh yeah, speaking of execute, it's time for Mortal Kombat! I didn't say that theme song right. Mortal Kombat is a decent film that has some very cool elements going for it. This film isn't amazing, but I enjoyed the majority of the fight scenes, and I like the appearance of Cabal and Kano. Sonya Blade also has a cool upgrade to her, and it's nice that it's rated R actually. But in this case, I felt like the movie held back on the gorier side of MK. Not to mention that it could have used a couple more rewrites, but for a first film, Mortal Kombat is very passable. And it especially blows away the 90s film, which was PG-13. Mortal Kombat being PG-13? That's like making Dirty Harry PG-13. Or making the Terminator PG-13. Oh, wait. Never mind. Spiral from the Book of Saw. I was looking forward to this new take of Saw. Spiral had me interested only on the notion that it had Chris Rock and Samuel Jackson in a Saw movie. I had to see this. Spiral is decent overall. Chris Rock and Samuel have okay performances, and I wasn't fully gripped into the story until about halfway through. I like the dark theme of everything surrounding Chris Rock's character being a bad omen, even though it could be executed better. All in all, I just like seeing Chris Rock take more risks to his acting. Like, imagine if Chris Rock was in a Nightmare on Elm Street film. Or an MCU film. One can only dream. Black Widow. Finally dropped after so long, and it's kinda average. To put it more in detail, I like the character of Black Widow a majority. And this film has a more mellow tone than the other MCU films, which was different but in a good way. Florence Pugh is great, and I would like to see her more in the MCU. But with the negatives though, the reveal of Taskmaster was very disappointing. But then again, you have to compare it to the Mandarin reveal that was also disappointing, but look where that led. I have hope for Taskmaster actually. Yeah? And Scarlett Johansson has a nice ending to the role that might be her last for the MCU. This film should have came out before, you know, The Happening. But Black Widow overall is a passive action flick. Since we're in the Marvel department, I have a lot to say about Venom Let There Be Carnage. A lot of people liked the film, and a lot of people thought it was missed potential. Me, on the other hand, I like Let There Be Carnage a little more than the first Venom film. I thought the first Venom was one of the most by-the-numbers Marvel films that I've ever seen, and I like that Let There Be Carnage was willing to be a little weirder and more darker at times. Tom Hardy is not a bad actor, even with the voice of both Eddie Brock and Venom, which confirms these films as literal comedies, just saying. Woody Harrelson, though, chews the scenery like crazy, in a role that I think he's naturally born to play. Blink blink, blinkety blink blink blink. Killing it as Cletus Cassidy. Blink blink, blinkety blink blink blink. By the way, I'm never going to stop referencing Lego Batman. I appreciate Let There Be Carnage for the more crazier aspects of it, and I felt a little more attached to Eddie Brock / Venom than I did in the first. It was a very weird and macabre 90 minutes, but it was fun and satisfying. But Carnage needed to be rated R. Why would he make Carnage PG-13? That's like making Alien more family friendly, or making Die Hard, oh wait a minute, never mind. Space Jam: A New Legacy. The follow-up / reboot of Space Jam dropped this year. Space Jam New Legacy is a reboot starring LeBron James as himself, who is trying to understand his son, wanting to play video games instead of basketball games. But after LeBron gets a gig at Warner Brothers, he suddenly gets sucked into the serververse full of Warner Brothers IPs and franchises. I never would have imagined that this is what the plot of Space Jam 2 would be like. I'll give this film points for being creative, and it's nice to see the Looney Tunes in their 2D forms on the big screen. There is also a funny joke here and there. Honestly, I don't have too much of a bone to pick with this film. I thought it was a decent, satisfying enough time. But LeBron's acting skills, oh boy.
What's your fundamentals? Darius, chill out. You know I got full court vision. Are we quitting on each other now? Can't be great without putting in work. I want you to be yourself. Do you understand how much I love you?
Dude, what is this? F9 The Fast Saga. I'm not a gigantic fan of Fast and Furious. To me, they're just very fun films with a diverse cast that you don't have to think too much about. My favorite film is Furious 7. But with all that said and how this film compares to the other Fast and Furious films, I am so happy that this film exists. This is probably one of the craziest, thrilling, and hilarious theater experiences that I have ever witnessed in 2021. The insane aspects of this franchise as a whole are cranked up to fucking 12 in this installment. These films are literally cartoons now, and it could not be any better. Even with the Tokyo Drift reunion and John Cena as Dom's brother. Like I said, John Cena, you're this close to being Dwayne. I will forever love this dumbass franchise. As for the next film, Vivo. Vivo was a passion project that finally released on Netflix this year. Who developed this passion project, you ask? The one and only Lin-Manuel, you son of a bitch, get in here! Continuing his streak, Lin-Manuel Miranda plays a singing kinkajou who sings with his pal Andreas. After tragedy strikes, it is up to Vivo to give Andreas his old love letter to his old partner, Marta Sanvodal. While Vivo tries to travel to Florida, he meets an energetic tween named Gabby, who helps Vivo get to his destination. One thing that I do admire about the character Vivo himself is that the title character could talk, but he can't necessarily communicate with humans, which makes this talking animal character idea seem semi-interesting, even if it was done before. The colorful animation and cast are very nice. The songs are good, if a tad generic, and the quest has a powerful emotional core to the whole thing, which shockingly made me cry near the end, which was something I definitely wasn't expecting. Sony Pictures Animation, you're making up for the Emoji Movie with Spider-Verse, Mitchell's vs. the Machines, Wish Dragon. This animation studio can do no wrong. God damn it. Don't! No Time to Die. This being the final chapter in the Daniel Craig Bond era, No Time to Die was good, but I don't have too much of a strong emotion around it. It's not the film, it's just me. I honestly think I need to rewatch the Daniel Craig Bond films again, because I don't have too much of a strong attachment to this universe and its characters. But other than that, Daniel Craig is a damn good actor, and the action is superbly done. It's good even though it is a tad too long. The last film that I'm going to talk about is The Last Duel. For the very sensitive and mature subject matter that this film has, The Last Duel is an extremely well-made trio of character studies. Each act of the film tells the viewpoint of how each character led to the main conflict. While also doing that, this film has a biting commentary on assault, as well as how violence can drive people to levels of losing sanity. It is a riveting watch, but it's not for the faint of heart. Now that I've went through all the films that are awesome, great, and good, now I gotta go to the bad, badder, and the ugly. Okay, I'm not being that harsh, actually. I'm just saying these are the films that I thought were pretty mediocre, or as the kids call it, mid. Actually, I think the coast is clear now. I think I'm going to go back up to my original layer to tell you about the films that I thought were mediocre this year. Let's rock and roll! Alright, no more interruptions. It's time to talk about the films that I thought were mediocre, or as the kids call it, mid. I don't really see too many films as bad, so really I just call them mediocre. Let's go through some of the films that I thought mediocre. You know what? It's getting a little stuffy in here. Let me just take this off. Ugh. Alright. Hit it. Army of the Dead. Army of the Dead is the second Zack Snyder film that dropped this year as a Netflix exclusive. After viewing the amazing director's cut of Justice League and going to this film with an open eye, I'm sorry to say this, but this movie was disappointing. It sucks because this came out 2 months literally after Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I was this disappointed in Army of the Dead. This film had a lot going for it, with a decent twist on the zombie movie formula by having the zombies be smart, be skillful, and also reproduce. Whatever floats your boat, Zack Snyder. Other than that, I like the cast a lot, but they kind of phone it in here. And the film takes itself extremely seriously. Like, there's a zombie tiger in this, and a chainsaw that is literally never seen again in the film after the intro. Go wild with this premise, guys! Other than that, the film does have a couple suspenseful parts and a good cast going for it, but that doesn't hold this film back from being very lackluster. Speaking of Netflix films, Red Notice. Red Notice was a Netflix film that dropped last year, and it's considered as the time I'm doing this video to be the biggest budget for a Netflix film. Gee, for a huge resource, this film feels so plastic. The big selling point of Red Notice is for the 3 big name actors to interact off each other. I understand that's supposed to be this fun turn off your brain film, but man, you need more than just 3 attractive actors to make a movie good. The thing that this film lacks most is a sense of passion. It just feels like a forgettable action film. I don't even remember much about it, which says a lot about Red Notice, honestly. Oh, wait. There is this scene in which Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds, like, their characters are, like, in this jail and such. And Dwayne Johnson actually, like, picks up a rock. The Rock picks up a rock. That's just baller. But yeah, mediocre movie. Dear Evan Hansen. I don't know the lyrics. In terms of the film based on a Broadway musical, I heard Dear Evan Hansen is a bad adaptation of the Broadway musical. I've seen a recording of the musical, and it's fine. Evan Hansen is obviously a psychopath, but I haven't seen the film actually. And also, they cast the main actor from the Broadway musical into the film. Ben Platt playing teenager Evan Hansen. Oh my god, is that supposed to be a teenager? Does this teenager have a mortgage too? I have no clue why they made 31-year-old Ben Platt reprise his teenager role. It fits about as well as a peg in a square. Overall, I never bothered to see Dear Evan Hansen. I just pretended that it just kind of didn't exist. Oh wait, it's on HBO Max now? Guess I gotta endure the pain sometime. Oh great, my family's playing polka music. Ignore that. Coming to America, being the sequel to what Anthony Mackie says is one of the best films ever, Coming to America is a major downgrade from the original, even with Eddie Murphy and Wesley Snipes doing their absolute best. I know this is a sequel with a completely different director, so I wasn't expecting this to be some fantastic sequel, but just witnessing the final product, I'm very underwhelmed. Sucks because there is a decent concept here, with Eddie's daughters and the whole notion of him having a son too, but it doesn't stop this from feeling like a sequel that was churned out when the people didn't even need it, even when the film itself is self-aware about it in one scene. Gee, I wonder who that's for. Cinderella 2021. I actually plan to do a whole video on this one because, oh boy do I have a lot to say. And also, this video is becoming a little too long, so the last film I'm going to talk about is Tom and Jerry. Okay, for out of all the mid-movies that I've showcased and such, Tom and Jerry probably has to be the best one of the bunch. For what Tom and Jerry does wrong, some things it actually does right. The best parts of the film are literally when Tom and Jerry appear and fight each other, in which the fighting is still kind of brutal, which I liked a lot. But the big loss this movie faces is the fact that it's live action. I'm betting a majority of audiences do not care for humans interfering with the focus of a film that's literally titled Tom and Jerry. But the scenes with Tom and Jerry are great though, which combines this film to an okay enough final product. Now people, this is where the video comes to an end with my discussment of films. But it ain't over yet, because whenever the hell I'm dropping part 2 of this, which is going to focus on the TV shows and music that I liked of the year, it's going to dive more into that, and it's going to be interesting. All right, I hope you liked what you saw here, and I hope you got something out of this whole video and such. Hence it being like 40 minutes and such. If you like what you see here, please like and subscribe. Ciao.